this material. First off, I really appreciate you here. I know there's a lot of places that you could be on Thursday night. And I really appreciate you taking time to be here with us. So here we go. So what are we going to accomplish today? Just my goal today, and if I don't accomplish this, then call me out on it, is to describe what burnout is, what are the signs and symptoms of burnout. Is burnout really a problem in dental hygiene? Why is it so important that we deal with burnout? What's causing burnout? And then I highlighted these final three because we can talk till we're blue in the face on what it is and what's causing it. But the reality is we need to be able to fix it. So how can we fix burnout in the short term and in the long term? What do we actually have control over? And what should leaders, dentists, business owners, office managers be doing to minimize burnout? So here's what I need from you. I need an open mind because I do a lot of coaching dentists across the country, and I give advice. And the number one thing I hear is, "Oh, Jason, that wouldn't work for me. But you don't know my situation. I'm different." And I get that we're all different, we're all unique, and we're all in different situations, but I would ask that you keep an open mind about some of the things that we're going to talk about here as a group. I realize that some of this stuff will work for you and some will not, but I just want you to be honest with yourself. I want you to be honest with me. At any time, ask questions if something's not clear. I really want you to strive for absolute clarity of what I'm talking about. And then I just want you to be honest with those circles that you're at. So when you go back to your offices, just be honest. Like, that's all I ask. So who am I? Again, my name is Jason Tanoory. I'm from upstate New York, about 2 hours east of here from Utica, the armpit of upstate New York. I love it though. It's got the best food in New York. I did my undergrad at University of Dayton, went to dental school at University of Pennsylvania, and then came here and did an AGD at Eastman in Rochester. I married my teenage crush, Carol, in this photo. We met when we were 16. We have 5 kids, 12 to 21. I started our practice about 21 years ago now in a small 500 square foot office over on Paris Street in Canada, and it's kind of blown up on us. We have 7 locations now and over 115 team members. About 10 years ago, I came to the realization that dentistry was cool, but it doesn't get you out of bed anymore. So I just decided to pivot a little bit and grow this organization, all in an attempt to just serve people, serve patients, serve team members, serve communities. And that's what motivates me now. That's kind of what gets me out of bed. I love to read, learn, experiment, get better. I do a little bit of coaching. And then probably the most important thing here, some of the stuff that we're going to talk about, I'm not a medical doctor, nor am I trying to be one, but I do read a lot, I do experiment a lot, I do coach a lot. So I would ask you to take this material, just have fun with it, play around with it, ultimately try to become the best version of yourself. Let's have some fun. My family here. On the left here, this is Parents' Weekend at the University of Dayton. I went to the University of Dayton 30 years ago, and my daughter, in this Miller High Life shirt, probably that moment, she chose the University of Dayton. She's graduating in May. We're just talking to Renee how over her spring break, we're going to go down to DC and look at houses because she got a pretty sweet job in the Beltway there. So on the upper right is my twins, Luke and CJ, and then on the lower right is a trip they recently took to Pittsburgh. So I'm blessed at home, and I'm certainly not going to brag on work, but I am. There's just some pictures from work. Probably you can't see it with the pointer here, but this one with the reindeer, yeah, it's probably my favorite here. I have a few people from our organization here. One of them is Dr. Kim, so she's sitting over here, having some fun with that reindeer hat. Just more fun pictures at work. We have a good time. let's start. So what is burnout? The World Health Organization defines burnout as a syndrome caused by chronic workplace stress which has not been successfully managed. I like the second definition better, the phenomenon that results from the reaction of repeated stress that manifests itself as loss of energy, increased desire to take a mental break from coworkers. Does anyone have an increased desire to take a mental break from coworkers? Take a show of hands. Take a show of hands. No. You cannot raise your hand. Professional burnout occurs when a person reaches the point of physical, mental, and emotional exhaustion after trying to keep up with the daily demands of their job over a long period of time. So these are three different definitions of burnout. I think they probably resonate in some capacity with everybody. I know they certainly do with me. Burnout happens when we feel emotionally exhausted, a decreased sense of accomplishment, and depersonalization. These are not my terms. These are the terms that scientists use when they research this. And this MBI metric is actually what is used in all the literature. So I'm not going to go down a rabbit hole unless you want to and cite specific literature. And you can reach out to me via cell and text and email, and I can give you all the research sightings. But what a lot of these research scientists do is they use this MBI inventory, and it's these three things: emotional exhaustion, decreased sense of accomplishment, and depersonalization. So when you feel that, you're burnt out. So what are the signs and symptoms of burnout? Physical and mental exhaustion, alienation from the workplace, and reduced performance. You guys resonate with that. People struggling with burnout typically will have experiences of low energy, exhaustion, difficulty maintaining efficiency at work, and low mental capacity. Feeling emotionally drained and not nearly as productive as they have a history of being. It's a big one, right? So I'm sure a few years ago, maybe pre-COVID, you felt like, wow, I'm kicking ass. I'm taking names, I'm doing a great job, and all of a sudden nowadays it's different. Why is it different? It's different because you may be experiencing some level of burnout. So some specifics on the signs and symptoms of burnout. High number of errors when completing tasks. Just making mistakes that you haven't traditionally made in the past. Right? A negative mood or poor attitude. A sense of feeling overwhelmed. Increased call-ins and absenteeism. You're just irritable. I never used to feel like this. Why does everything set me off? Lack of enthusiasm, lack of passion for what you do that was previously present. I talked about what gets me out of bed in the morning, right? When you're having this sense of burnout, you're probably not as excited to get out of bed. And then cynicism towards colleagues, towards patients, and most importantly, and probably most scarily, maybe not this word, towards the loved ones, right? This is where the rubber meets the road. When you start to experience burnout at work, and it comes home with you, and people that you love start to get negatively affected, it's time to draw a line in the sand and start to deal with it. So is this a joke, right? Is burnout really a problem in dental hygiene? Well, the literature is pretty darn clear. A survey taken of dental hygienists in 2020 found that 30% are experiencing some level of burnout in their career. Now, I don't want to be that weird speaker that says, look to your left, look to your right, but I'm going to, right? So 30% is a big number. There's 6 of you on average at a table, but at least we set up 6 seats. That means people who are burned out. Almost 10% of dental hygienists have left clinical hygiene, right? So we can blame COVID for a lot of things. I'm going to argue that it's not just COVID. Okay, I know some dental hygienists, more than some, left dental hygiene because of COVID, but 10% of the workforce of dental hygienists leaving because of COVID is a big deal. A 2019 survey of dental hygienists found that 43% cited not feeling valued and respected as a primary reason they could seek a new job within the next year. And as we'll learn here in a few minutes, that's one of the main causes of burnout. So why is it important to deal with burnout? Well, if one result, burnout can completely devastate a person's outlook on life as well as their overall well-being. It takes a toll on a person that can negatively impact his or her overall well-being, ultimately resulting in physical and mental harm to themselves and the ones they're closest to. Again, this is where it hits home for me, right? So I get that work can be a little stressful from time to time, but if it starts to follow you home, it's a real big issue. So something to think about here. Hopefully I can share some strategies with you that maybe don't allow you to bring it home. So who and what is actually causing burnout? And to be honest with you, it's these four pictures, right? The person on the upper left, this weird dentist / hygienist, I don't know what they're doing here, but patients. Patients are causing a lot of burnout. And we're going to get into specifics, but they're becoming ultra demanding, right? And just a level of need that's like crazy. Like it's nuts. So patients are certainly part of the problem. On the upper right here, we have Dr. Dennis, right? I'm not the dentist that ever was today. I am one. I have a handful of my dentists here in the audience. But sometimes dentists can be, you know, I'm being recorded, so I'm not going to scan for sure. You know what I'm talking about, right? On the lower left here, I love this picture, right? We have team members, we have coworkers that are causing our burnout. We're a good majority of us want to rally together and get something done, and then we have this person here on the right that dropped their K and they started walking away. Like, it's really difficult to get shit done if there's one or two people on this team that are just rowing the boat in the other direction. And then finally, again, it's time to look at ourselves in the mirror and have some difficult conversations about maybe it's you that's a source of the burnout. So I'm certainly not suggesting that it's all you, but patients, the doctor you work for, the office manager, whoever owns the practice, your team, and yourself. These are all causative agents of burnout. So lots of causes of burnout, but the top two reasons by far are a negative work environment and feeling underappreciated. Those are really top two. Now we're going to take a deep dive on each of these and unearth some things. But if someone were to ask me why are you burnt out, I can assure you it's either a negative work environment, or feeling underappreciated, or both. Okay? I saw some people taking some photographs. I have a QR code at the end of this presentation. You can take a photograph of that, and the whole presentation will just be emailed or be linked to you. But you can still take photographs. Negative work environment and feeling underappreciated. Compassion fatigue. This is a real issue. We pour into our patients, we care so much for our patients, arguably more than they care for themselves, and they don't value the education and services we can offer to help them. So, how many times have you been in a situation where someone has mild, moderate periodontal disease, severe radiographic tartar calculus? It's a no-brainer. I'm going to prescribe non-surgical periodontal therapy. I educate the patient on how this is affecting their cardiovascular health, how they're predisposed for dementia, predisposed for Alzheimer's. This periodontal disease is taking years off their life. This is a conversation. This is a no-brainer, right? So you pour into them, you make these recommendations, they hear you, and they're like, now, like, how many times can you hear that before you just shut it down? It cuts you. It's like that death by 1,000 cuts, right? One of the issues that we have in our organization is brand new dentists who are amazing people, but their treatment plans are not comprehensive. They're afraid to tell a patient what they really need. And the reason they're afraid to tell the patient what they really need is they hate when the patient says no. So they're almost insulating themselves and not allowing that to happen. But experienced hygienists can make these great recommendations for periodontal therapy, for laser therapy, for fluoride, for seals, you name it, doesn't matter, right? And you know you're doing it with a pure heart. You know you're doing it because it's in the patient's best interest. But when they continually say no, at what point are you just exhausted? At what point, I forget exactly what the hygienist was, but I love this quote here on the bottom. At a certain point, there is simply no more wine left in the bottle. And they just check out mentally. I don't want that. I don't want it from me or my young dentist. I certainly don't want it from my hygienist. But it's a real issue. This is one of the main causes of burn. Can we know what, anyone that's not on my team, know what this is? We've got somebody here who knows what this is. Who said that? Let's go. Dream ticket for her. This is Maslow's hierarchy of needs. He was a psychiatrist in the 50s, I believe. And he came up with this model that human beings have basic needs. It starts on the bottom. And unless you meet this first basic psychological need, you cannot go to the second one, right? Excuse me. So, at its most basic form, we need air, we need water, we need shelter. These are human needs, okay? Once those human needs are filled, you go to the second level. You need personal security, you need an employment, you need a fair wage, right? Once those first two needs are met, and I'm assuming these first two needs are met for all of them, right? Once these first two needs are met, you go to the next one. And the next one is where it gets a little weird, right? The next one is the need to be heard, the need to be respected, the need to be acknowledged, the need to be appreciated. This is where, and I'm owning this myself, this is where dentists and office managers, people, can sometimes struggle, right? I can give you a place to work, I can give you a fair wage, but you need to be acknowledged, you need to be heard, you need to be appreciated. It's not in the vernacular, like it just doesn't happen on a regular basis. So when you consistently look for and need level 3, 4, and 5 needs, but you don't get them, you're underappreciated. And again, goes back to one of the main causes of burnout, feeling underappreciated and negative work environment. So how do we deal with it? That was a teaser. So needs versus wants, requirement for the well-being of a human, right? You all have needs, just like we talked about on that last slide. Level 1, level 2, level 3, level 4. You have to have those fulfilled, or you'll figure out a way to fill them yourself, okay? Wants are different. Wants are wishes or desires that people may have without any understanding or regarding the consequence, right? So I showed you a picture of my twins. We'll have a birthday cake, and my twins want to eat the entire chocolate cake, right? They don't need to eat the entire chocolate cake. They want to. My 16-year-old son, Jack, wants to have the car out till 3 a.m. That's not a need, right? He wants that. I have some staff members that want a 3-hour lunch, right? I get it, but that's not what they need, okay? They need level 3 and 4 Maslow's hierarchy of needs. They don't need this stuff. So there's a big difference between needs versus wants. What are some other causes of burnout? Well, I think a lot of us, maybe some of you are not, but a lot of us are struggling to find great team members. So you're understaffed. That's a big cause of burnout. Some of you maybe are just hiring because the person can fog a mirror, right? So they're not a superstar. So we're like, okay, we're fully staffed, but this person's a joke. Like, where do we find this one, right? That causes burnout. Ergonomic fatigue, right?
I don't know how many of you guys saw that video that I put together for this presentation, and I'm sure none of you sit on logs as you're treating patients, but we have ergonomic issues, right? We work with equipment that's just not great, okay? That can cause physical burnout. There's an intense pressure to provide thorough care with minimal discomfort to the patient. Like I talked about a few minutes ago, it just seems like patients are just, I'm not going to say it again because Sally's recording me, but they're different than they were 10 years ago. It's a little weird, right? Time constraints, almost all of which are out of our control. Now, I don't know what kind of practices you're from. Some of you are on 40-minute recalls. Some of you guys are on 45-minute recalls. Hopefully most of you are on 60-minute recalls. But like when you're on these shorter recall periods, like, and you're still being asked to do a shit ton of work, like that causes burnout. Not to mention that how many times are we getting patients call nowadays and say, oh, I'm just 5 minutes away. And they roll in 20 minutes into their appointment. And there's this expectation that we're still going to see them and do everything. That's crazy. When that starts to pile on, you get burnt out. And then dentists, owners, office managers, just oblivious to the bullying of the hygiene department, the hygienists are simply choosing to put their head in the sand, right? They don't know what they don't know. Other causes, little things become big things. Like, is your office good at dealing with little issues while they're still little, or do they blow up? Lack of adequate breaks, anxiety associated with meeting the employer's expectations. Office cultures plagued by hostility, fear, gossip, bullying, competition, mistrust. Lack of perceived value in what you're doing. Insufficient support from office leadership. These are all causes of a negative work environment and ultimately burnout. If you're not sure what's causing your stress, you should consider journaling. Okay? I journal every morning. I love it. Remember on this bottom here, keep an open mind, right? Oh, journaling, that wouldn't work for me. Keep an open mind, okay? So if you're not sure what's causing the stress, if you feel this angst, then journal about it. Like, what went well today? What didn't go well today? Write it out. It'll come to you, I promise. What's causing your stress at a cellular level? I swear, I promise you this is not a biochemistry class, but we need to talk about this as we start to deal with strategies. Burnout is a real thing at a cellular level, okay? It's not just a feeling. This is a chemical reaction in your body, in your bloodstream. Huge uptick of cortisol. As you get more stressed out, you develop more cortisol in your blood. Hormonal swing, low dopamine and serotonin, large increases in inflammatory markers, cellular oxidative stresses, oxidative radicals. You're literally killing yourself by going through burnout. Okay? By experiencing burnout. Alright, so let's take a break here. So let's just regroup before we go into the next part of the presentation. So we've defined burnout. We've discussed what it looks like. We've talked about how it's a real issue, right? You look to your left, you look to your right, 1 and 3. We've talked about what's causing burnout. We've discussed that you have to deal with burnout, right? You with me?
Yes.
So what are we missing? Should we end it here? Thank you, good night. What are we missing? How do we deal with and solve this, right? Anybody feel like this? I'm not sure that's sand or water. It looks like sand. Either way, you're under something. So how do we deal with it? How do we start winning? What's preventing us from winning? What do we need to start doing right now to help curb this phenomenon? So the simple answer to that is, well, just identify your stressors and remove them. Right? You got it? Thank you, good night. So that's really what we're going to be talking about in the second half of the presentation. Identify your stressors and remove them. That's a simple, just not easy solution. Some of the things that I'm going to talk about, every one of them will be argued. Remember, please keep an open mind. You can think, actually I don't even want you to think this in your head. please try to table the mindset of, well, that would never work for me. Oh, you don't know my office. Oh, you don't know my office manager. You don't know my desk. Like, table that and just keep an open mind. You're judging yourself and you're judging your situation. Like I mentioned, I love to read. This is probably the best book I've read in the last 3 years. Positive Intelligence. In a nutshell, it talks about how there's voices in your head. There's saboteur voices, right? They call it the judge or the victim or the high anxiety. And then there's sage voices. And our ability to be successful in life really comes down to hearing this judge, recognizing the judge, compartmentalizing the judge, and then choosing to go in this direction. That's a super abbreviated version of the book, but again, there'll be a QR code. There's a lot of links in my presentation, so I'm not going to take a deep dive onto a lot of this stuff, but here's an interesting slide, and there's an active link there at the bottom. You can take this assessment in 5 minutes, and it'll tell you what kind of saboteur you have in your own head, right? Everybody has the judge over here, and then you have a couple of these other ones. My biggest saboteur, besides judge, is this one on the left here called hyper-rational, right? I can solve anything. I can fix anything. Just ask my wife, right? So she'll come to me emotional with a problem, or I'm perceiving it as a problem, and just get very vulnerable with me. And I'm like, oh, I can fix this. And I fix it, right? Pat me on the back. And she's like, Jason, just shut the... I just want you to listen to me, right? So I have an issue being overly hyper-rational. I'm dealing with it, right? I need to hear that voice, just close it up, put it in the box, and just listen. But this is an interesting survey. I would encourage you to take it. So what are some short-term strategies to solve burnout? Now, these are things that you have full control over. Okay, we'll talk a little bit about things that you don't have full control over, but these are things that you have full control over. Sleep, nutrition, exercise, mindset, meditation, journaling, affirmations and declarations, forest bathing, that's cool. We'll talk a little about forest bathing. So I highlighted those because we're going to spend some time talking. Yeah.
What's forest bathing?
Oh, we'll get to it. So I highlighted those because we're going to spend a little bit of time on those, right? I'm not going to talk in depth about aromatherapy or pet therapy, right? I hope you guys realize that those can also help, right? Decrease screen time, finding creative outlets, humanitarian efforts, investing in your skill set, right? Both your clinical skill set and your non-clinical skill set. Investing in equipment, and we'll talk a little bit about that. Seeking peer groups, seeking professional help, and we'll spend a lot of time talking about learning to advocate for yourself. Okay? So, quick story. It was a small town in the middle of nowhere in a forest, right? Maybe 500 people in this town. And the town had 2 lumberjacks, right? They had this brawny, young, hubris lumberjack. He was maybe in his mid-20s, who just came onto the scene. And then they had this lumberjack that was in late 60s, early 70s. He'd been the lumberjack in the town forever, okay? And then this young, hubris lumberjack was like, to the older one, like, you should retire. Like, I am so much better than you. And he kind of laughed. The older one kind of laughed. So finally the townspeople got together and said, we should have a competition. Let's have a lumberjack competition. Who can cut down more wood? And the young guy was like, this is a joke, right? You're actually going to put me up against this 70-year-old? So they did. They had a competition. When they set aside one Saturday, they said, look, young lumberjack, you go over here. Seasoned lumberjack, you go over here. They couldn't see each other, but they could hear each other. Whoever can cut down the most wood in a day is the winner. So 6 o'clock in the morning rolled around. They went to their separate forest areas, right? And the young lumberjack was just boom, boom, boom. I mean, he was like sweat, but just would not stop, right? And the older lumberjack started too. The older lumberjack was like boom, boom, boom. And then 7 a.m. came, and the young lumberjack heard the older lumberjack stop for like 10 or 15 minutes. And the younger one was like, I told you, this old fart, like I got him. Like I'm going to win this competition. And then finally the older one picked it back up. But every hour, on the hour, the older lumberjack would stop for 10, 15, 20 minutes. And the younger one was like, see, he's old, he's outdated, he needs his rest. Well, the end of the day came, and they dragged all the wood to the center of town to decide who was ultimately the best lumberjacks. The older lumberjack had ended up cutting down twice as many trees as the young lumberjack. And the young lumberjack was like, what the, like, how the hell did you cut down twice as many trees? I heard you take a 10, 15, 20-minute break every hour. And he was like, oh, you must have thought I was taking a break. What I really was doing was sharpening my saw. So, what's the lesson here? You have to slow down. You have to take a break. You have to check out every now and then. Because if you just continue to go, if you continue to grind, you're screwing yourself. And you're going to end up totally burnt out. So how can you take the lesson of the two lumberjacks and make it resonate in your own day? You can't take 20-minute breaks every hour. You hear that? You can't. But there's a lot of things that you can do. We'll talk a little bit about that. The first thing you need to do, above all else, is make sure you're doing what you want to do. Have clarity with what you really want. Why are you doing what you're doing? My team's heard me talk about this a lot, and I'm going to talk about it here. The definition of hell. Right? This is my definition of hell. Say you go through your life, and you die, and you end up meeting your maker. In my case, that's Christ. So I die, I'm walking up to Christ, and right next to Jesus Christ is another person. And I look at this other person, like, Jesus, who is this person right here? I don't really recognize him. And he's like, oh, Jason, this is who I intended you to be. This is who I created you to be. That, for me, is the definition of hell. So I need to figure out a way to make sure that I'm as close to this person as I can possibly be. And the reason I share that story is, are you meant to do what you do? Like, you need to know that. Because if you're not meant to be a clinical hygienist, none of these strategies are going to work. So you need to identify, is this who I'm really meant to be? Are you climbing up the right ladder? There's a Stephen Covey parable where he talks about, we're climbing up this ladder, we're going as fast as we can, we're not taking breaks. You get to the top of the ladder, you're ready to high-five everyone, and you realize the ladder's leaning against the wrong building. Okay? It's a real thing. Identify who you're trying to become, remind yourself daily, and then fight like hell to get there. This is one of my favorite books from James Cleary, and this has got a lot of things. I'm not suggesting you go out and read this book. It would benefit you. But if you are not sure, there's a great interview between Pastor Craig Rochelle and James Cleary. There's a link here at the bottom. But a lot of the book is deciding who you are trying to become. Habit development is not necessarily what you're going to do, but trying to identify who you're trying to become. So the classic example is someone that's overweight. Okay? The what is I want to lose 20 pounds. That will never work. That's not sustainable. You need to identify who you are trying to become. I am trying to become a healthy individual. If I'm trying to become a healthy individual, what does a healthy individual do? They make good choices with food. They make good choices with exercise. Okay? That's sustainable. Again, that's simple. It's not easy. Everybody know who this is? I'm dating myself here. Nobody knows this? This is Stuart Smalley. He was an actor on Saturday Night Live, and he was the king of declarations. And he would always say in his skit, I'm good enough, I'm smart enough, and doggone it, people like me. So I'm going to share a little bit of that here. You have to know who you are becoming, okay? I have declarations that I read every morning. It takes me 5 minutes, but they solidify who I'm trying to become. I have 7 different who's, and I'm going to share a couple of them here. The first one is I'm trying to become my wife Kara's soulmate. So that's who I'm trying to become. Now, what does that mean? Kara's my rock. She's my biggest support. She's my entire world. She's my best friend. I love her unconditionally. She's beautiful, sexy, compassionate. She has a huge heart, and she's a God-fearing woman, right? I am trying to become Kara's soulmate. When I read this every morning, it just solidifies who I'm trying to become. So that's who, that's the what, and then these little bullet points down at the bottom here. This is what I need to do on a regular basis. I need to pray with her daily. I need to tell her daily that I love her. Okay? I take walks with her. This is another one of my goals. I'm becoming dad of the year. I'm trying to become my kid's dad of the year. So that's the who. This paragraph is the what. And then these bullet points are the how. And I'm not trying to let you dive into my personal life. There's a reason behind this, right? I am becoming the best clinical hygienist in upstate New York. Is that who you want to be? If that's who you want to be, awesome. High fives all around. What does that really mean? Define it. Define what the best clinical hygienist in upstate New York is, and then have bullet points, have daily, weekly, monthly, yearly activities that make you the best clinical hygienist in upstate New York. What does it look like? What do you have to accomplish? How much CD are you taking? Are you taking communication training? Are you reviewing the literature? Are you calibrating your office? Are you mentoring? These are important things to decide, to solidify that you're the who that you want to be. And if you try to do this exercise and it sucks, then maybe you're in the wrong seat. Maybe you don't want to be a great clinical hygienist. And that's cool. There's a lot of other things you can do. I have a clinically trained hygienist that runs our whole finance department now. She's great at it. She hated being a clinical hygienist, but she just did it because she thought that's what she had to do. Anybody have any questions on that? I know I'm not trying to get all dogmatic on, but that's a really important concept. You really got to have clarity on who you're trying to become. Because I can share all these strategies with you, but if you're not meant to be a clinical hygienist, do something else. Life's too damn short. All right, so let's talk about some more strategies that you can control. All right, you can control your sleep. How important is sleep? A lot of professionals talk about the 3 pillars of this stuff, meaning sleep, diet, nutrition, and exercise. Those are the 3 most important things, right? More and more research is coming about that sleep is actually the foundation, and exercise and diet or nutrition are on top of that. So sleep is probably the most important thing you can do for yourself. How much sleep do we really need? Research is very, very clear on this. Well over 90% of the people need 7 hours plus per night to function at a high level. Now you may get 5 hours a night and fool yourself. You're like, well, I can do fine on 5 hours a night. It's not true. You're lying to yourself. You're making bad decisions. It's not sustainable. The best way to get better sleep is to control what's called the PM bookend, okay? So how are you treating that period of time just before bed? When are you stopping your caffeine, your food, your alcohol, and your screen time? Caffeine should be tight. These are just basic parameters in the research. Caffeine should be stopped 12 hours at a time. Food, 4 hours at a time. 4 hours before you go to bed. I don't know how many of you guys can really do that, but that's a lot. This is for ideal sleep. Alcohol 3 hours and screen time 1 hour. You should sleep in a colder room, ideally 64 degrees or lower. You should do other things that'll help you get a little bit better sleep, like warm showers. There's supplements out there that can help you sleep. One that I take personally is ashwagandha. I love it. It's really, really helped my sleep. Consider a wake-up routine that doesn't involve your phone. Use a blocker on your phone. An amazing night's sleep, an amazing day, always starts the night before. Always starts with this book. There's a great book, and I put a link in here, from Matthew Walker, who's probably the expert in sleep. He wrote a great book called Why We Sleep. A great epidemiological study that he cites in his book about what's the word I'm looking for? Daylight savings time. This is going to blow your mind. Looked at all ER visits across the country. The number one day, or the highest increase in emergency room visits for motor vehicle accidents, cardiovascular episodes, it happens right here when you spring forward. Number one, out of 365 days. Why is that? Because everyone's getting 1 hour less of sleep that particular night. You know what else is crazy? Guess which is the least populated day for ER visits, motor vehicle accidents, cardiovascular episodes? It's the fall backward day. If that doesn't teach you how important sleep is, then nothing will. Again, just get 7 to 8 hours of sleep. Simple, just not easy. Exercise. We all need some form of movement every day for cardiovascular health, for muscle development, muscle maintenance. Exercise does a number of amazing things. You get exercise high, dopamine, self-esteem. The number one excuse I get when I talk to people about exercise is I don't have any time. I cited an article here from the Washington Post called Exercise Snacks. It shows that you can have 2-minute bouts of exercise 3 or 4 times throughout the day, and it does as much good as a 20 to 30-minute workout, say first thing in the morning or after. And when I say an exercise snack, it means that you end your recall appointment a hair early. There's that one little piece of tartar on the distal of 15 that you're not going to get this time around, okay? So you walk your patient up to the front, and actually you have a few minutes. You run up and down stairs for 2 minutes, or you do jumping jacks for 30 seconds. It may sound stupid, but read this article. It will help you, okay? It will benefit you. Where should you start with exercise? You do you, okay? If you've never exercised before, find 5 minutes a day to do push-ups in your kitchen on the countertop. Just like this, right? Do some air squats. You do you, okay? But exercise is a huge part of preventing burnout. Remember we talked about the chemistry that happens with burnout? Exercise goes directly against all of that nasty stuff I talked about with burnout. Find accountability partners. Think outside the box. I put a link here to rucking. I have become just a over-the-top advocate for rucking. In its simplest definition, it's walking with a backpack that's got some weight in it. Okay? Now, how much weight do you need? Typically 10% of your body weight. They make special rucksacks, but you don't need that. You can get a book bag, put a couple gallons of water in it, and go for a walk. It is amazingly beneficial, especially if you don't have time. Okay? Take a 30-minute walk 3 times a week with a weight on your back. It will help your cardiovascular, it will benefit you cardiovascularly, and it will develop muscles from your shoulders to your hamstrings and quads. There's a link in here. I've written a summary on rucking. Check it out. Getting involved in exercise. Simple, just not easy. Okay? Nutrition. Develop a nutritional plan based on your goals. I don't care what you think you know about nutrition, but the only way to lose weight is to eat in a calorie deficit. Okay? Now you may say, well, I'm keto, and I'm this, and I'm that. The science is very clear. You will not lose weight unless you eat in a calorie deficit. And I will cite 100 articles that prove that. But it can't be too low of a calorie deficit because you'll shut down your metabolism. So this isn't a nutrition class, but if you want to talk about this afterwards, buy me a beer. Amy, give him a drink ticket, and we can have a conversation about nutrition. You got to get enough protein. You know, sometimes people are like, oh, protein. Like, you got to get enough protein. Good rule of thumb is 1 gram per pound of body weight. We have to maintain the muscle mass that we have. If we don't, bad things are going to happen. People say, well, I intermittent fast. And I used to be a huge proponent of intermittent fasting. If you're still eating in a calorie surplus, I don't care how much you fast. You're going to gain weight. Try to eat clean. I usually about 80% of my meals are clean. And then know your numbers. Have some clarity on what your blood pressure is. Have some clarity on what your lipid profile is. Like, just putting your head in the sand is not good. There's too many people that just have a heart attack. Like, I'm not trying to scare anybody, but get clarity on your situation. Do I really need to measure and weigh everything? I'm not suggesting that you measure and weigh all your food, but what I am suggesting is if you want to eat in a slight calorie deficit, you probably need to weigh and measure your food. I love this book called The Comfort Crisis. I'm going to share a couple things from this book. Sleep-deprived people eat, on average, 550 more calories a day. Boom. So if you think you're getting by with 5 to 6 hours a night, I can assure you you're eating more. Okay? Overweight people underestimate their calories by about 700 a day. So even though they think they're measuring stuff, they're off by 700 calories a day. Some simple math, as you guys know, 3,500 calories in a pound. That means that they're gaining a pound a week when they think they're eating healthy. Study after study shows that people can be as far as 100% off of their calorie estimates. Eat healthy. Simple, not easy. Okay? It's got to be disciplined. I'm sure some of you guys have seen this quote. Suppose you read about a pill that you could take once a day to reduce anxiety and increase your contentment. Would you take it? Suppose further that the pill has a great variety of side effects, all of them good. Increased self-esteem, empathy, and trust. It even improves memory. Suppose, finally, that the pill is all natural and costs nothing. Now, would you take it? That pill exists. It's called meditation. Do I have any meditators in here? One? So again, in your mind, you're like, well, that wouldn't work for me. Like, let's just be open to this, okay? I'm going to share some stuff with you on meditation. The research is crystal clear. Meditation is very beneficial for you. Now, I'm not saying you have to go on a 7-day meditation retreat. Start where you're at, okay? You can literally start with 10 seconds, and this is proven in the research. Just sit down, anchor yourself, and try to clear your head, okay? And I have some links in here. But start where you're at. You do you. Don't overthink it. I meditate for 15 minutes every morning. That's where I'm at. I started at 10 seconds. The whole goal is to really empty your mind. And then as soon as you find yourself drifting, it's a celebration. Whoa, I'm drifting. Catch it, bring it back, okay? And I'm empty, whoa, bring it back, okay? It takes practice. But when I started meditating, I was much more calm at work. I started sleeping better. It changed a lot of things. So I would ask you to keep an open mind. I would ask you to consider it. 10 seconds. Start with 10 seconds. Breathe in. Inhale, hold, exhale. Air can be a mood-altering drug. We're going to talk in a few minutes about having uncomfortable conversations with an office manager or your dentist, right? If you want a drug to help you with that conversation, you could probably take Xanax or something else. I would encourage you to do some box breathing, okay? Big 5 seconds in, 4-second hold, 6 seconds out. You do that 4 or 5 times, you're going to feel awesome, okay? If you don't believe me, try it on your way home, all right? I'm not selling air. Like, I don't have any agenda here. But when you do that, it will change your mood instantly. I do it all the time with my kids. Like, my kids do something crazy. Like, my twins are at the table, like, big thing of chocolate milk. I know what's going to happen, right? I'm like, calm down, CJ. Luke, stop looking around at the dinner. Boom, chocolate milk. right? All over the counter. Now I have a couple different ways I can react. I can scream, that's what I used to do, all right? Now I'll actually go around the corner. I'll do 30 seconds of box breathing. Right back around the corner. I still yell. But the pitch is much less. I'm joking, oh yeah. Right? So bathe in the forest, right? What's forest bathing? Forest bathing, again, proven in the literature, comes out of Japan, and the lady did a ton of literature to say that people that spend time in nature, away from stimuluses, right? Who just walk, trees around, they just feel better. They have a heightened mood compared to a placebo, okay? Now, you don't have to necessarily, like in the middle of the day, go find a forest. This research has also shown that even if you put plants in your operatory, put plants in the hallway, and just stare at them. This sounds like stupid, but I'm telling you, like if you just stare at these and you wonder about them, you're going to see the benefits. So what I've done is combined a bunch of this stuff, right? I love to ruck, so I get my rucksack on, I load it up heavy, roughly a third of my body weight, and then I just go for a walk, right? I don't need my phone. I don't need my AirPods, right? I used to. Oh my gosh, what am I going to do? Actually think? Like, I'm going to let things actually like come in and out of my head? Like, I don't need to consume stuff. I just want to think. So I'm going for a walk with my rucksack. I'm getting great exercise. And I'm just letting thoughts come in and out of my head. I'm just wondering. Try it. Try turning off your phone. And just doing that. You'll be amazed. So, okay, you don't have to meditate like this person on the left. This is how I meditate. I was feeling like just laying on my floor. Usually my dog is in my face. It's hard to concentrate that way, but it challenges me. So some more short-term strategies. Like we talked about these ones here on the left. I want to just spend a little bit of time with the ones on the right. Invest in your skill set. Learn new clinical skills. Okay? And if you're kind of taxed on clinical skills, learn non-clinical skills. Go to a communications class. Go to an Excel class. Just learn. You can really deal with this cortisol buildup in the blood, with these oxidative radicals in the blood when you learn new skills. Invest in equipment. Seek peer groups. Seek professional help. If you feel like you need professional help, seek professional help. And then most importantly, learn to advocate for yourself. Anybody have any questions so far? So what can I do specific to my current job? First thing I want to say is this quote from Tony Robbins. If you do what you've always done, you'll get what you've always gotten. I think everyone understands what I'm trying to say here. You have to change. If you want to see something change, it has to start with you. You have to own 100% of this process. How do we cope with burnout in the long term? We advocate for yourself and we go into the storm. Into the storm is a term that we use a lot at work. Okay? It means having the courage to have that difficult conversation. Because you really have two choices. I think I have it next. Yeah. So you really have two choices. If you know that something needs to be said, you're trying to be an advocate for yourself, but we get shy. We get worried. We don't want to go into the storm. And what I'm going to suggest to you is you have to go into the storm. This is a model based in Stoicism, and I love the philosophy of Stoicism. Stimulus choice response, or it's also known as stimulus gap response. This can be used in any facet of your life, in any moment of your life. So no matter what, you're going to be hit with a stimulus. I just talked about my twins knocking over a glass of chocolate milk. That's the stimulus, okay? Now I'm in this gap. And I have a choice. How am I going to respond to this stimulus? Okay? I could choose to be in this gap for like a second and start yelling and screaming, right? And that's how I used to be. But now I've learned to sit in this gap and think about what is the best possible thing that I can do? What is going to make me a better person? How can I develop my character for good? How can I be an advocate for myself in this gap? And then I respond. So, if there's a situation at work, just make up some fictitious example where your doctor comes in for an exam and you are trying to tee up treatment. Mrs. Jones needs this build-up and crown on tooth number 19. It's a no-brainer. You've already started patting yourself on the back. And the doctor says, oh, no. We're not going to do a build-up and crown here. We're going to do a four-surface amalgam, right? And you're just like, what the, right? So that's the stimulus, okay? Now you're in this gap. You're like, I'm really confused. Like, I thought I knew what I was doing. Like, he came in or she came in and recommended this, right? You have a choice. Now, you're either going to choose to not address it and not go to the doctor and ask, like, can I get some clarity on this? And that's not going to grow you. Or you're going to be in this gap and you're going to be like, I need to understand what just happened there. I'm going to go to my doctor and be like, doc, like, I just need some clarity on what just happened. Like, I thought I was dialed in. You said this. I was thinking this. Like, help me understand what I did wrong. Help me understand how I can not do that next time. But we're so afraid to have that conversation for whatever reason. You kind of sit in this pool of mediocrity and you're not going to get any better. So you have to be in this gap. You have to realize the benefits that are going to come from doing the right thing, and you got to respond. So long-term strategies for solving burnout. Talk with decision makers on the obstacles you're facing. Be open and vulnerable, but also be prepared. So let's just make up a fictitious example of sterilization. So you go above and beyond in sterilization, and you really feel like you're the breadwinner in sterilization, right? No one else is doing a good job. That's the stimulus. Okay? Now you're in this gap. You got a couple choices. Bitch and moan about it under your breath, right? You could just like, this culture sucks, my team sucks, everybody sucks, right? That's one option, right? I can assure you that if you pursue that response, no good will happen, okay? But what if you made an appointment with the office manager? What if you made an appointment with the doctor and you said, hey, this is what I'm facing. I need some help on how I can handle this situation. Like, that's a good option. You're doing everything you can possibly do to advocate for yourself and try to come up with a solution. And that's all you can do. I can't tell you how your doctor is going to respond, but I can tell you as we go through some of these other things that you have a better chance of them responding in a way that you want if you make an appointment. Okay? Like I have an open door policy. It works for me. But I know a lot of people don't. So if you had this issue and you just kind of walked in and you just started, right? Some doctors don't like that. It is what it is. I wouldn't judge that. Make an appointment. I really need to talk to you, doc, about this issue. Can we set up some time tomorrow after work? If someone fights you on that, that's an issue. Okay? So make an appointment. Provide them with an agenda of what you're going to talk about. Don't surprise them. Don't blindside them. Doc, can you make some time for me tomorrow after patients? I really want to talk to you about the sterilization responsibilities. Who's going to say no to that? Have a proposed solution. Okay? When you finally get this opportunity to go into the storm and have this open, vulnerable, candid conversation, share what your issue is, okay? Have a couple possible solutions. I know that when people come to me with issues, I almost always pick the solution that they choose because they're always better than what I would choose. It is what it is. Establish boundaries. Be okay with saying no. So this is kind of the other way. Someone comes to you and they say, we need this, we need this. I need you to do more of this appointment. I need to shorten these recall appointments. I need you to come in on your day off, right? We just had this issue at work where there's shortages everywhere, right? We were asking our hygienists to come in on their 5th day to cover patients. Certainly would never insist that they come in. And a lot of the hygienists, they love the opportunity for the extra income. But at a certain point, they just didn't want to do it anymore. And they felt bad saying no. So they had to come to me, and they're like, we feel bad saying no. So it had to get me to calibrate the rest of the organization and say, don't you make them feel bad, right? Don't show them any signs of like, this is a bad thing, right? Because that's not the expectation. If you want to come in on your 5th day of work, awesome. But that's certainly not the expectation. So you have to get out in front of that. Be okay with saying no. Insist on a cadence of one-on-ones. I have, like I said, I do a little bit of coaching, and I tell the issue is always communication. It sounds ridiculous, but I can assure you it's always communication. So I'll have a doctor say, well, I had a hygienist leave me for the office up the road, extra $1 an hour. You know, just can't keep up with these wages. I'm like, you're an idiot, because they did not leave you for an extra $1 an hour. They left you because you probably haven't talked to them in 3 years about if they're winning, are they doing a good job, giving them any feedback on their abilities, right? Hearing their ideas. That's why they left you. Well, I don't have time to do all that. Well, you better find time to find a new hygienist because they're gone, right? So if your doctor or your office manager is not going to set up a protocol of one-on-ones, then you need to go into the storm and say, I want to have a regular cadence of meetings with you. Once a month, 15 minutes. I just want to know if I'm winning. I want to know if I'm doing a good job. Nothing is worse than leaving for the day and having no clue on if you did a good job. It sucks. So you need to be heard. You need that feedback. Am I winning? Develop and facilitate clinical administrative calibrations. For some of you guys that have multiple hygienists or multiple doctors, it's a pain in the ass when there's different shit coming out of every room, right? The peri over here, but it's not peri over here. Well, this is a crown and this is not a crown. Like, that's hard to deal with. Why don't you take it upon yourself to calibrate the hygiene department? What's periodontalgies? What's not periodontalgies? What tooth needs a crown? What doesn't need a crown? Like, that will help a lot. That shows how much value you can bring. Realize your worth. Make sure you're climbing up the right ladder. And this goes back to the who. Is this who you really want to be? You really want to be a great clinical hygienist? I hope you do. It's an awesome profession. But make sure you have clarity. Create a better culture or find a better culture. Have uncomfortable conversations trying to get this culture better. So of all those things that we talked about, some of them are needs and some of them are wants. We have to define which ones are needs and then fight like hell to make sure that those needs are filled. That we talked about before. The need for others to be listened to, healthy boundaries, clarity, honest feedback, encourage, value. People need level 3 and 4 needs. So what should you expect from an employer? What's good versus great versus meh versus poor. Okay? All of these things are what you should be thinking about. How's the culture? Okay? Do you have core values? Are they real? Because sometimes we have core values that we throw on a t-shirt or we throw on the wall and we never talk about them again. Like, what are your core values? Is your office living them? If not, start. be the advocate to have that happen in your office. I think we need core values. I think we need principles that are going to define our behavior. How are the ergonomics? How's your operatory flow? How's the office flow? How's the equipment? How's your system flexibility? I know a lot of us had plexiglass up around front desks during COVID, right? Is it still up? If it's still up, that's an issue, right? Have the courage to go into the storm and have a conversation. Now, if the entire team feels like that it's not an issue, cool. You do you. Plexiglass all around. Triple N95 masks. I don't care. But if it's not the whole team, then a conversation has to be had. You're sending the wrong message. Like, go into the storm and just ask. Go at it from a position of curiosity. Why are we still doing this? Are your recall appointments calibrated? Do you know what's expected of you? You need to have clarity on that. Are there any non-negotiables in a recall appointment? Do you know that? If there's not, develop it and bring that to your doc or your office manager. I think these are the 20 things that are non-negotiable. We should do these 20 things during a hygiene appointment. Blood pressure, medical history, updated, whatever it is, right? These are ways that you can start to show value to the leaders in your organization. Scheduling flexibility. A lot of these burnout papers that I read suggest that 30 hours is the sweet spot for clinical hygiene. When a majority of hygienists get above 30 hours, burnout goes up exponentially. Do you have the flexibility to work less than 30 hours? If you don't, that's an issue. Appreciation. How is your office showing you appreciation? You need it, right? This is not a want. This is a need. Okay, we can go back to Maslow's picture, but I know you guys remember it, right? Everybody has appreciation needs that are different. Anyone here read 5 Love Languages? We know that book? Yeah? So there's 5 love languages that resonate with everybody, okay? And each person has their own love language. Some people have words of affirmation. That's how you show love. Some people have tangible gifts. That's how they like to have love, right? There's 5. The same thing works with appreciation. Some people like to be appreciated via words in public. Some people hate that. Some people like to be appreciated with handwritten notes in private. Some people like to have appreciation showed via quality time with them, or acts of service, or tangible gifts. I'll tell a funny story. One of my primary assistants last year, who I love to death, she's amazing, right? I was just building her up, right? Words of affirmation. I was killing it every day. You're the best. You're the best. I was telling everybody, she's the best, right? And then I actually had her take, and this link will take you to that, had her actually take a survey, an assessment, on how she wants to be appreciated. Words of affirmation was dead last. Totally screwed the pooch there, right? Her number, which is weird, because about half the people have words of affirmation as their number one sign of being appreciated. 6% of people have tangible gifts. She was tangible gifts. So I gave her a $10 gift card, she about cried, right? Perfect. Score, right? But figure that out. Try to get that figured out. Technology and software. Are you still using paper charts? It's archaic. There's a better way. Okay? Does it work? Yes. But if you could go to your office manager, doctor, like, there's a better way. Okay? Digital x-rays. Non-paper charts. Like, let's have a conversation. Let's at least start the conversation. We're starting to implement artificial intelligence software. It's really cool. We're just starting to do it. But now we have computers telling us where possible periodontal disease might be on this x-ray. Where interproximal decay might be on this x-ray. You know how nice it is having a second set of eyes in the room that's a computer? Like, I'm not suggesting that artificial intelligence is doing this diagnosis, but it's nice to have a second set of eyes. Growth opportunities. Is there any opportunity for growth in your office? Could you be the office? Could you become the office manager? Could you do something else? Having growth opportunities is nice. Is this a safe place to give and receive feedback? And we talked about one-on-ones. Like, one-on-ones are super important. Ask for one-on-ones. You need to know if you're winning. And then finally, are you being paid a fair wage? Are the benefits good? We're almost done here, guys. Just a quick reminder that Amy's going to be passing around some surveys. You need to fill the survey out to have the CE awarded to you. It's not on me, it's on the AGD, okay? So we need your legal name, your credentials, if you're a doctor or a hygienist, your email, and then the certificates are going to be emailed. How do we ask for a raise? Okay, this can be an uncomfortable conversation. First thing you need to do is be an advocate for yourself. Know your value, okay? Show how valuable you are and show the value you bring. What do I mean by that? I don't want to talk numbers, but we're going to have to talk numbers here. A profitable hygienist makes roughly 3 times their hourly wage. Okay? So let's just use some round numbers here. If you make $40 an hour, how much do you need to do in net production per hour to be considered profitable from the business's perspective? $120, okay? So that's a number that you should know, and that's a number that I would encourage you to bring to the decision makers in your office that talk about raises. Now, if you don't know this number because you don't have access to certain reports, go into the storm, have an uncomfortable conversation, and say, I'd like to know what my net production is. That way you can have an educated conversation. Is that the only way that you can show your value? No. Are you a great referral source for your practice? Generate a report that shows how many patients come to your practice because of you. That shows value. How much production do you help tee up for the doctor? If the case acceptance out of your room is like 75, 80%, that's huge. You should know that. And you should bring that to the doctor or office manager or whoever's making the decision on what you get paid. Know this stuff. There's nothing worse in my world than someone that just shows up and asks for a raise but has no other data to support it. Arm yourself. How's your attendance? Don't ask for a raise if you miss 1 out of every 3 days. It won't happen. Your patients rave about you. What new skills are you developing? What's the market paying? You should know that. I coach dentists in Seattle and Portland. Their hygienists are making $70 an hour. Like, of course the cost of living is crazy. There's some shortages out there. But that doesn't mean that a dentist in Rochester, New York is going to make $70 an hour. But you should be paid well. You should be compensated fairly. Know what the market is paying. And then what else would you be open to taking besides money? Okay? If there's a legitimate cash flow issue in the practice, what else can we do? Can I get some new equipment? Can I get a new chair? Can I get an extra weeks of paid vacation? It's not all about cash. There's other things that you can have that show that the office can show value for you. So we're talking about a lot of stuff here, and I'd be more than happy to hang out and answer some questions. I want you to understand this one super important lesson. Knowledge is not power, implementation is power. And what do I mean by that? I mean that you really need to practice this stuff. You really need to work on this stuff. Just because I've given you an hour presentation on how to eat better and how to ask for a raise doesn't mean it's going to happen. Okay? You need to work yourself through this. You need to throw on a rucksack and go in the forest without your phone and think this shit through. How can I start tomorrow to be an advocate for myself and to start avoiding the burnout that I'm experiencing? I love this slide, and I use it in many facets of my life. We're creatures of comfort, and we don't want to get out of our comfort zone, all right? You know, Jason said a lot of things about sleep and about asking for raises and stuff like that, but oh, I'm not going to do that, right? Because you're comfy. You're in your little bubble. Oh, my bubble, okay? Get out of your bubble. That's where the magic happens. Get a little uncomfortable. Thank you so much for your attention. This is my email address. This is my cell phone. Feel free to scan or take a picture of this QR code, and it'll bring you the entire presentation. Like I said, there's a lot of links to the presentation if you want to take a deeper dive on any of the stuff that I talked about. Thank you very much.